Who was Edgar Allan Poe? Man, I haven't done this. Who was for like a year. So let me just go ahead and start talking about Edgar Allan Poe in like 5 minutes. Actually, I'm gonna go lengthen a bit, but I'm gonna try my 5 minutes. Let's get this started with Edgar Allan Poe. In fact, his little face doesn't even smile. What is that then? Well, mostly his iconic picture is like dark bushy eyebrows, like little slit eyes, and a very mysterious frown. And of course a bunch of ruffled hair. I can't ruffle my hair. And of course this actually gives a little gloom to Edgar Allan Poe too. Edgar Allan Poe literally had a lot to actually talk about. In fact, he himself is basically a very tragic person. Like the people in his short stories, he's actually gone through what most of them have gone through. Like he was a drink addict, he's like problem with drinking, he had problems with life. He even had problems with his jobs. In fact, he could lose his job because of drinking, or he just refused a job because it was too long or something. It just wasn't right for him. And he could never get a raise, and he could almost never get enough to support his family. A writer back then was a really hard profession. In fact, not a lot of people were there. In fact, only like 3 people were famous American authors who could like support themselves solely by writing. And Edgar Allan Poe set out to be one of those people, except he actually kind of failed in the part of like having getting his family together, but like supporting his family. But however, he himself was able to make a name for himself, especially for those very harsh reviews that he gave out. Yikes. Edgar Allan Poe himself also has a very brooding and mysterious figure, and for years we've actually thought he was a drunkard, a narcissist, to be honest. Then we later found out about that the guy who wrote that account was very unfair about it. It was also biased, so we later just changed the story too. But that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much it. So, what else do we literally have here? One thing that I'm going to have to say is that it's just worth it. It's just darn tootin' worth it to just go ahead and see who was Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe himself is a really amazing person, and you should go ahead and start reading about him too. But the only bad thing about Edgar Allan Poe is that what people actually expected his poems to be funny and clever, they got serious and short poems. So, in fact, when he flunked out of West Point, basically, his comrade said, "Hey, so you're a good writer? Write some poems for us." They actually meant clever and funny poems. But they ended up with, however, serious poems and a lot about other topics too, like love, for example, and they really did not want that. In fact, one of the fathers actually got as president and said, "What a disappointment. Who is this Edgar Allan Poe? I want to smack him." So that's pretty much about it. That is not an actual quote from the father. But if there is something that I'm going to have to say is that Edgar Allan Poe, he is an amazing person. Edgar Allan Poe himself lost a lot. He lost his brother to tuberculosis. He lost his mother to tuberculosis. He lost his foster mother to tuberculosis. He lost his first crush to tuberculosis. He lost his girlfriend to tuberculosis. What the hell? He literally just went ahead and lost like 5 people that he loved, all the way to the same reason. Tuberculosis nowadays you can just vaccinate it, and back then when it was created in the 1900s, they're like, "This is dangerous. You're putting tuberculosis into our patients. That means you can make them sick and you could dominate the world. We do not allow this vaccine." And after World War II, they're like, "We might have to actually allow this vaccine. It has actually worked for everyone that's never tried it. So yeah, we're gonna approve it." So yeah, that's actually how tuberculosis is now curable today. It's also known as TB. But hey, so as I've probably already mentioned, Edgar Allan Poe was born on January 19th in Boston, Massachusetts, 1809. And of course, as I already mentioned, his mom was dead in 1811 and has died at the age of 24 as an actor. Then in 1815, he's moved to England with his foster parents. Why England? And in 1820, the Allans actually returned to Richmond in America from England. Luckily, they never went to the Civil War. And then Edgar Allan Poe attends the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, which was actually created by Thomas Jefferson himself. Then he joins the U.S. Army in 1927, and he also published this little poem and his first book. Apparently, it's called Tarmallan and Other Poems. Then in 1829, Fanny Allen dies, who is Edgar's foster mother. and she dies at the age of 44. And in 1830, he attends West Point but is expelled 1 year later, which is exactly what he wanted. In 1831, he moves to Baltimore to live with his aunt Maria Clem and his cousin Virginia Clem and his brother William Henry Poe. Finally, they're reunited. In 1874, John Allan, Edgar's foster father, dies at 54 and literally leaves Edgar nothing in his will. Like, he doesn't even give 1 cent. Even though he died like a millionaire at today's standards, he never left him a little penny, which is actually Edgar Allan Poe would have literally needed. Then in 1836, he actually marries his cousin, who at the time was 12 years old, but that is like illegal, so they just made, on the wedding certificate, they wrote that Virginia Clement was like 21. That's like 9 years older. Like, they're making her 9 years older than who she really is. Then in 1838, the Post moved to Philadelphia. And since they moved to Philadelphia, there's a lot to actually talk about. In 1839, he begins working as an editor for Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, which is he also lost due to drinking. In 1841, he writes a famous story, Murders in Rue Morgue, which is actually about the first literary detective. A short story that creates a new literary category, the detective story. He's the one who invented the detective story. And then he wrote 2 more short stories based on his novel character. And then in 1845, he published his most famous and most enduring poem, The Raven. And in fact, it's actually really good. It's about like this man who just goes ahead and reading some like lost folk tale. Then he talks about Lenore, the woman he lost, and then he looks for at the door, realizes tapping is coming from his window. A raven comes in and he like talks to it, and the raven only says nevermore. Like, and then the narrator of The Raven says he's actually scared that his life will be forfeit and he'll never live again. He'll live nevermore. Nevermore, nevermore, nevermore. Go, go, go. And finally, in 1847, on January 30th, Virginia Clem Poe dies from tuberculosis. So now he's lost his wife. And then finally, in 1849, 2 years after his wife's death, on October 7th, Edgar Allan Poe dies, and no one knows why he died too. Some say that he was actually like poisoned. Others say he just drank too much alcohol. Others say that the sons of his going to be wife disapproved him, so they made him drink so that it looked like he broke his promise. And that's about it. Now today we actually have a lot to talk about. In fact, Edgar Allan Poe himself also wrote a bunch of science fiction. He wrote his name as Edgar A. Poe because he hated his foster father, and Allan was his foster father's last name. And also, all these things actually start happening. This is the complete poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, and even wherever you read it, it just seems really, really sad. Every word gives a chill to the bone, making you not know what's going to happen. But Edgar Allan Poe, Edgar A. Poe as he likes to call himself, will be forever known for all his novels, whether it's science fiction. Also, he never wrote more than 1 novel, and he only wrote 1 novel, and that was the only novel he's ever written. Whether it's The Raven, the Red Death of the Masked Ball, whatever his work is. And if he found out that today we enjoyed a lot, and that his first book sold for like $679,000 something dollars, he would probably have a smile on his face, like this. Hello. And so that's about it. So I hope to see you guys soon. And until next time, sure out, peace. Bye bye. Go, go. Nevermore. Go, go.